Welcome back to SwitchCorner, my name is Alex and today we're taking a look at Asterix and Obelix Slap Them All on the Nintendo Switch. Based upon the famous French comic though, can it do the name justice or should fans be keeping away? Well, hit subscribe if you love the Switch, as much as we all do here, join our growing family and let's get started. So story and the main bulk of the game here is known as Adventure Mode. This is 6 acts based upon 5 famous tales from the duo and one that was newly created exclusively for the game. Along the way then expect to meet characters from the series and of course then a whole lot of Romans. The writing's solid, very much capturing the spirit of the characters, which makes sense given the fact it's lifted straight from stories told before, and it will have you travelling the globe, saving the day. Think though locations like Britain, Spain, Rome and Egypt and you get the idea. The story though, typically small cutscenes between and following stages, and I enjoyed it, always good characters and that's no different here. So gameplay, and we get a 2D side-scrolling brawler, and that is long overdue for Asterix and Obelix. Most recently, we've seen re-releases of the 3D adventures, and for me, they never did the characters justice, and honestly, from a gameplay perspective, they were relatively weak. This one, it sets out to keep things simple, and in many ways it succeeds. So gameplay, first off, you can either play single player or local co-op, where of course you're taking control of a single character each. Playing alone, you can freely jump between Asterix or Obelix, but just know, if one loses all their health, it is going to be game over. Controls then are simple. You get a slap which can be chained up to 5, you can jump and pull off a flying kick as well, you can sprint, taking down enemies along the way, you can block, which you don't see all that often in a brawler setting, and then you can grab as well. Asterix swings them about and throws them at enemies, Obelix then can actually pummel them at the same time. Finally then, you do get special moves as well. These can be summarised as a ground pound, super punch and a uppercut. That was my personal favourite. These special moves, grabs and sprints, so they're all attached to a stamina meter, that is the lightning bolts underneath your health bar. You'll be charging these lightning bolts so by beating down on enemies, and it's forgiving but adds a dash of strategy to things that definitely works. I do wish though each of our characters had more unique traits, but it's sadly only a couple of moves here: a spin attack, a jumping ground pound, and then also a chain of heavy punches. The only issue I had with controls, honestly, the movement, you can move up and down the screen as well as left and right, and the specials, you need to press a direction and the X button at the same time. It didn't always recognise the input, it seems to take a little finesse, but throughout my playthrough I was still making mistakes watching my character move up the screen rather than pull off a special move. Also, a couple of the moves, you'll recognise this quickly, a little overpowered. Asterix throw, he swings them above his head, it takes down everyone around you, and then the uppercut, that is insta-death for many characters, so you'll find yourself exploiting that throughout, or at least I did. That's really it to controls. Like any brawler, it's simple by design but aims to challenge you with progressively intimidating boss moments and enemy waves. There is of course health pickups as well if you're wondering, in the form of food, but do not expect to find weapons. There's a whole lot of destructible barrels around you. This leads to coin, which goes into your high score meter along with beating down with enemies, and this is where food is hidden as well. There's nothing though in the way of interactable weapons that can be used to take down foes. So on first jumping in as well, I've got to say the game really shines. Between those visuals and the fast-paced combat, it impressed, but a few holes they quickly appear in its design, namely, and I'm actually shocked to be saying this, it's a little long and it got a little tedious, something you never want to encounter with a brawler. Why? Because of repetition. Though you are travelling the globe, it's pretty clear the designs are so similar in the stage layout. There's even a few levels here that outright repeat, like Redbeard and a battle on his boat. That must happen 6 or 7 times throughout the experience. It's just unnecessary over anything else, and there's nothing quite as frustrating as facing these same boss moments over and over again. To mix up the worlds as well and feel unique, it adds in the concept of verticality, meaning you can climb ladders occasionally, move floors, but it quickly started to feel like You know, while we were in a different part of the world, the layout and the placement, it was strikingly similar. Its final attempt at breaking things up, a few mini-games like catching boar and racing, but these moments, they amount to little more than short auto runners and button mashing. All of this, so it's not to say it's bad, it's just very easy to see where they could have trimmed it down and made something a little bit more concise and punchy. Instead, I was actually here for around 6 hours, and it ended up feeling a whole lot longer. The game just really doesn't evolve though. Enemies, they slowly trickle through, but there's not a huge amount of them. Yes, it's not just Romans, but even then, with the Romans, the main kind of enemy, there's maybe 6 or 7 designs total. It's just not the genre to hold the attention span unless it's bringing a little extra to the table, such as say the RPG elements found in titles like River City Gauls. Maybe that would have been another angle they could have taken. Likewise then, ending a level, this might sound picky, but it really started to get to me. On the final blow, you just kind of freeze in place. It plays out a little character animation, that's fine, but it never felt like you was progressing. Normally, you know, they move on or whatever, they go through a door, and yeah, it just didn't feel like much of a reward. It felt very almost canned. Closing out then, frame rate, it's targeting 60, it mostly succeeds, but you will see the occasional drop to around that 55 mark when there's an overwhelming number of enemies on screen. Still feels good though, and should not be a concern. One weird thing though, the 5 combo punch, it feels like the game actually drops a frame or freezes on the 4th or 5th punch. It's actually a design decision where the camera in these moments, it's actually just skipping a little bit and it feels off. I think it was to add weight to these extra punches, but I'd actually like to see that patched out. For some though, honestly, a longer runtime it will be a positive, but for me it takes away from what is a decent set of core mechanics. It even has replayability built in here thanks to an unlockable free play mode on completion of adventure, but you've got a pretty long journey ahead of you before you do get to that. That is essentially arcade mode, high score chasing. It's a nice touch, it's what I'll be personally coming back for. Then as well, factor in there's also 4 difficulty options to face. That is going to be easy through to very hard. Visually then, I love it hand-drawn, and it's the best, in my eyes, Asterix and Obelix have ever looked, given that feeling of a playable comic book. You know, no doubt fans, they've wanted this for years. The 3D adventures just never did the characters justice. While the designs in layout for levels can be similar as well, the visual design has a nice variety in its style and colour palette. Likewise, animations are solid outside of the camera movement we discussed. Very few complaints honestly on a visual front. I would have liked maybe more involved cutscenes. It's just text boxes and still images giving that comic book vibe. That makes sense. But otherwise, yeah, I do not think a fan of the characters could ask for more. Audio then, finally, we'll keep it quick. The music is solid, I liked it. There's a voiceover with the occasional sentence setting the scene, what's next, and you know, kind of the act we are on. Voice acting though, sadly limited to combat only. The cutscenes, they will be reading only. The voice acting in game then is just extremely limited, and yeah, within maybe 15 minutes, you've heard it all and it will slowly drive you insane. It seems there's a sentence for each attack type though. It's going to play it every single time and you're going to be hearing it a whole lot. I looked for any sort of settings, there is none here, so it's either mute the entire game or listen to it. There's no choice there, sadly. There's not even a settings menu at all. So the final verdict, and I want to preface all of this, it's clear they love the characters, they've absolutely tried to do them justice, and it's the best game based on Asterix and Obelix that I've seen in the longest of time. This is not a cash grab for me, but rather the treatment the characters deserve. For me though, at the same time, it feels like maybe they were a little too close to their project, and in those moments it's going to be hard to cut anything out, and I think that's actually where they fell short. They've left everything in, rather than maybe taking out some of the weaker moments and repetition. There's just a whole lot of good moments in here, but then there's also way too many moments that sag in its pacing, they repeat, and it really needed to be fine-tuned. The combat is solid though, the camera, it has that weird jerk motion occasionally, needs a fix, and the enemy designs extremely repetitive alongside that level design. For me, all the time spent on padding and repetition, that could have been pushed into developing more enemies, more boss moments, and just more creative levels overall. That said though, look, fans of this world, I'd say take a look, but play it in bite-sized chunks. Do not do what I did and finish it over a couple of extended sessions. You will absolutely feel the burnout. An above average 6 out of 10, and hopefully from this team there's more to come, because this is absolutely the way to use this world. It's a near perfect fit that has a whole lot of potential. Will you be adding this one to the library then, or are you hoarding onto that cash? A shout out then to the patrons of the channel who are just going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. It helps more than you know, so thank you all so much. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.